You're never too old to be surprised. And sometimes it's the questions no one dares to ask that bring out the most powerful answers. It was supposed to be a short private visit. No press. No cameras. Just Donald Trump quietly arriving at Clint Eastwood's ranch in California. The two hadn't seen each other in years. And though they both shared conservative values, they were men of very different rhythms. Clint had just turned 94, still sharp, still standing tall. And Trump? He was visibly struck by how present, how aware the man across from him still was. No meds, no teleprompters. Just raw clarity. After a brief moment of small talk, Trump leaned in and asked quietly, "Clint, how the hell are you still this strong?" Clint didn't laugh. He didn't answer right away. He just looked out the window for a second, like he was measuring the weight of his words. And then he said, "Because I don't let the world break me. And I don't make excuses for my body." What followed left Trump of all people completely silent. And if you're over 60, what Clint shared next might just change how you see the rest of your life. Stay with us. This isn't just advice, it's survival. The room fell quiet after Clint's first words. Not dramatic silence, but the kind that feels heavy, the kind where even the ticking of a nearby clock sounds louder than it should. Donald leaned back slightly in his chair, eyes narrowed, waiting for more. He was a man used to answers, used to certainty. But Clint moved at his own pace. "You know what people get wrong?" Clint finally said, his voice low but firm. "They think aging is about slowing down. That's the biggest lie they've ever swallowed. Aging is about fighting harder for what matters." Trump tilted his head. He wasn't used to hearing things like this. Not from doctors, not from advisors, and definitely not from the media. But Clint wasn't trying to impress him. He wasn't selling a brand or promoting a new pill. This was real. Clint leaned forward, resting his hands on the worn oak table between them. "I've buried friends who were younger than me, sharper, fitter, richer. But they all made the same mistake. They let comfort win." Trump didn't interrupt. For once, he just listened. They stopped moving. They stopped questioning. They thought medicine would fix what discipline once handled. Clint took a deep breath and looked directly into Trump's eyes. "I wake up every day like someone's coming for me, and I prepare accordingly." That hit hard. Because for a man like Trump, who had seen the weight of leadership, fame, and age all collide, hearing those words from a 94-year-old who still chopped his own firewood was sobering. And yet, it was just the beginning. Because what Clint said next wasn't about exercise or food. It was about the one thing most men over 60 completely ignore, until it's too late. Trump adjusted slightly in his seat, his expression tightening just a little. He had expected something along the lines of vitamins, daily walks, maybe even some old-school military discipline. But Clint's tone had shifted, deeper now, almost warning. Clint's eyes didn't blink as he said it. Men die earlier because they lie to themselves. Trump's brows lifted, unsure what Clint meant. They pretend they're fine when they're not. They ignore the tightness in their chest, the shortness of breath, the fatigue after simple tasks. And the worst part? They call it normal. Trump slowly nodded quietly. The silence between them felt heavier than ever. By the time they talk to a doctor, it's already a battle they've lost. And not because they weren't strong enough, but because they waited too long. He leaned back, almost reflecting inward. "I've had friends, powerful men, who thought admitting weakness meant giving up control. But the truth is, recognizing something's wrong, that's the first sign you're still in the fight." Trump swallowed. Not because he was afraid, but because he knew Clint was right. If your heart skips a beat, you don't negotiate with it. You listen. If your body says slow down, it doesn't mean stop, it means reassess. Then Clint pointed a finger at the floor, softly but deliberately. "The ground's already waiting for all of us. I just don't plan to meet it out of pride." That line lingered in the air like smoke. And suddenly, The conversation wasn't just about Clint's life anymore. It was about Trump's. And maybe even yours. Because if you're over 60 or love someone who is, this story might be the wake-up call that changes everything. Trump didn't respond right away. He just looked at Clint, really looked at him. 94 years old, no cane, no slouch, no fog in his eyes. And suddenly, he wasn't thinking about politics or interviews or the weight of the world. He was thinking about something much closer to home. "My doctor tells me I'm fine," Trump finally said. "But sometimes I wake up and I'm just tired." Clint gave a small nod. "That's not age," he said quietly. "That's neglect." Trump blinked. "You can be rich, you can be smart, you can even be lucky. But if you stop giving your body what it needs, rest, blood flow, oxygen, movement, challenge, it'll turn on you." Quietly, slowly, and then, all at once. Clint's voice was steady, but there was something sharp in his delivery, like a man who had watched it happen too many times before. "The real enemy isn't time," he said. "It's passivity. People assume slowing down is safe. But for older folks, slowing down is how disease sneaks in." Trump looked down for a second, almost instinctively placing a hand on his chest. "Do you know how many men I've outlived?" Clint continued. "Because I kept doing things even when they got hard. Walking instead of riding, thinking instead of reacting, cooking my own meals instead of ordering takeout. Discipline, Donald. Not for vanity, for survival." Trump sat quietly, absorbing it. It wasn't a speech. It was a warning. And somewhere deep inside, it resonated, not just with him, but with everyone who's ever said, "I'll deal with it later." The wind outside had picked up slightly, brushing against the wooden walls of Clint's ranch like a whisper from another time. The air inside the room, however, was still like the calm before a storm of reflection. Trump leaned forward again, his elbows on his knees now. This wasn't an interview anymore. This was personal. "So what do you do, Clint?" he asked. "What's your day actually look like?" Clint gave a small grin. Not smug, just knowing. "I get up before the sun," he said. "I make my bed. I drink warm water, not coffee. I stretch until I feel pain. And then I breathe into it." Trump raised an eyebrow. "You stretch until it hurts?" "Every day," Clint nodded. "Because if you're not uncomfortable, you're not alive. Comfort is a slow death, and most people your age, they're dying sitting down." That hit hard. "Then I walk," Clint continued. "Outdoors, no phone. No distractions, just me in the cold morning. Your body remembers nature, even if your life's forgotten it." Trump nodded slowly, visibly absorbing every word. This wasn't some guru with a sales pitch. This was a man who had lived through war, Hollywood, heartbreak, and time, and come out clear-eyed on the other side. "I eat simple. I lift light weights. I don't touch processed sugar. I still work. And when I'm done, I rest hard. No screens, no scrolling, just stillness." Trump exhaled. "You make it sound so deliberate." "It is," Clint said. "Because I watch too many men die with regrets. And if I can walk into 95 with clarity, it won't be luck. It'll be because I earned it." That silence returned. Not because there was nothing left to say, but because the truth needed room to settle. And you, watching this, maybe you've been pushing through your own fatigue. Maybe you've been ignoring signs that your body's been whispering for years. Stay with this story. It's not over yet. Because what Clint revealed next went even deeper. And it might just be the one thing you've been overlooking. Trump sat back in his chair, unusually quiet. He wasn't known for listening. But something about Clint's presence, his calm, his age, his unapologetic discipline, seemed to cut through all the noise. It wasn't just wisdom. It was earned authority. And Trump, for once, didn't try to match it. He just let it in. "So what's the real danger?" he finally asked. "What kills men like us?" Clint's answer came without hesitation. "Isolation." That one word hit harder than any health stat ever could. Clint continued, his voice lower now. Not heart attacks. Not strokes. Not even cancer. Those are just the final chapters. The real danger starts when people stop calling. When your wife's gone. When the kids are busy. When your phone goes quiet. And you stop mattering to other people. Trump didn't interrupt. He looked down like he knew exactly what Clint meant. Men die in pieces, Clint said. First the purpose goes, then the movement, then the mind. And by the time their body gives out, they've already disappeared. There was a long pause, no words, just that quiet truth. Then Clint looked up, steady. You want to stay alive? You fight for connection. You make yourself useful. You don't retire, you rewire. Trump's jaw tightened slightly. Clint wasn't just talking about men in general anymore. He was talking about him, and maybe about you too. Call someone. Show up, stay involved. Because when the world forgets you, your body starts to do the same. And suddenly, the secret to Clint's long life wasn't just about habits or food or even mindset. It was about not disappearing. And if you're watching this and you've been feeling a little invisible lately, Clint's not just speaking to Trump. He's speaking to YOU. Trump shifted uncomfortably in his seat, but not out of disrespect, out of recognition. It was clear that Clint had struck a nerve. Not just with him, but with something deeper, something men like him rarely admit aloud. You're right, Trump finally said, his voice softer now. It's easy to feel unnecessary. Clint nodded, not as sympathy, but as confirmation. He'd seen it too many times, not just in others, but creeping toward himself like a shadow that only discipline could hold at bay. Men don't talk about it, Clint said. They talk about cholesterol, back pain, maybe politics. But not loneliness. Not the quiet shame of being left out of the world you used to lead. Trump folded his hands. I still feel like I'm in the middle of everything, he muttered. But sometimes, I wonder if I'm just trying to convince myself. Clint didn't offer comfort. He didn't soften the truth. You want to stay young? He asked. Then stop trying to be who you were. Start being who you need to be now. That line lingered. Men die chasing their old selves. I stayed alive by becoming someone better. Trump looked up slowly, and for the first time that day, his expression shifted. It wasn't admiration. It wasn't even surprise. It was respect. Because Clint had just shown him, and every man watching, that aging wasn't defeat. It was a new assignment. And if you're 60, 70, or even 80, it's not too late. You just need to stop clinging to the man you were, and start fighting for the man you can still become. The room had grown still again, but this time it wasn't heavy, it was charged. Like something important had just shifted, not just in the conversation, but in the way Trump was sitting, thinking, absorbing. He looked at Clint, almost searching for cracks, but there were none. No bitterness, no regret. Just a man who had faced time head-on and refused to blink. So what do you regret, Clint? Trump asked finally. Anything you'd do differently? Clint paused for a long time. This wasn't a man who liked to look backward, but he did it anyway, for real. I regret not listening to pain sooner, he said. I regret thinking rest was weakness. I regret letting stress run my life in my 40s. Then he looked directly at Trump. And I regret ignoring my gut when it told me I was burning out. Trump nodded slowly, the words cutting closer than he expected. Pain isn't the enemy, Clint continued. It's the signal. The problem is, most men wait until pain becomes damage. He leaned back slightly, folding his arms. Now I check my blood pressure every morning. I monitor what I eat like my life depends on it, because it does. And I don't make excuses anymore. No man ever outlives his excuses. Trump cracked a slight grin, almost involuntarily. But it wasn't mockery, it was acknowledgement. Truth has a way of disarming even the most confident men. You ever afraid? Trump asked. Clint gave the smallest smile, only of wasting time. And with that, the message became clear. If you're over 60 and you've been ignoring pain, brushing off fatigue, skipping your checkups, making excuses for that shortness of breath, you're not being tough, you're being careless. And Clint Eastwood didn't survive to 94 by being careless. Outside, the California sun was starting to dip lower, casting a golden hue through the ranch windows. The air felt warmer now, not from the weather, but from the gravity of everything that had been said. Trump sat in silence, his hands clasped together, resting on the table. He wasn't just listening anymore. He was thinking, really thinking. You know, he finally said, people always assume we've got it all figured out. That men like us, with status, with power, don't have to worry about aging like everyone else. Clint gave a dry chuckle. They forget we bleed too. He leaned forward, tapping the table once with his index finger. I've seen billionaires drop dead on treadmills. Celebrities pass in their sleep. Not because they didn't have access, but because they stopped paying attention. Trump raised an eyebrow. To what? The basics, Clint said. Hydration, stress, movement, blood pressure, sleep, not overloading your plate after 5 p.m., not drinking just because you're lonely. He looked directly at Trump, his voice slower, more deliberate. You don't cheat death by buying time. You cheat it by respecting it, and that hit different. Because if there's one thing people over 60 know, it's how fast time starts to move. 1 year rolls into the next. One bad habit becomes a lifestyle. One missed doctor's visit turns into a diagnosis. And before you know it, you're wondering where the fight went. I'm still here, Clint said, because I never stopped treating life like a battle. And I never handed over my health to chance. That wasn't just advice. That was a challenge. And maybe, just maybe, the person Clint Eastwood was really speaking to wasn't Donald Trump, it was you. Trump stood up slowly, walking over to the large window that overlooked the dry hills stretching beyond Clint's ranch. The landscape was quiet, but alive, like Clint himself. Strong, weathered, still standing. Behind him, Clint remained seated, eyes steady, watching the man who had once led the most powerful nation on earth quietly process what he'd just heard. You're not what I expected, Trump said, without turning. I thought you'd give me a list of tricks, supplements, biohacks, something flashy. Clint smirked softly. The truth isn't flashy, he replied. It's slow, it's boring. And most men are too proud or too busy to hear it. Trump turned back, his tone quiet now. But it works. Clint nodded. It kept me alive when others didn't make it. It gave me years most men lose because they think discipline is temporary. But longevity isn't earned in one big moment. It's built in 1,000 small choices no one sees. He stood now too, facing Trump directly. You want to live long? Then live right, especially when no one's watching. Eat like someone else will pay for your surgery. Move like you're training for your future. And speak like your grandkids are listening. There was nothing left to say after that. Not because there weren't more lessons, but because sometimes the most powerful thing is knowing when the truth has landed. Trump extended a hand and Clint shook it firmly. No photo op, no headlines. Just respect, man to man. And as Trump walked back toward his car, he turned once more. I'm going to remember this. Clint gave one last nod. Good, but don't just remember it, live it. Because if you're watching this, and you've made it this far, you know it already. It's not too late. It's never too late. But it only works if you start now. If this story made you stop and think, even for just a moment, then don't let it fade. Because the truth Clint Eastwood shared isn't just for Trump. It's for all of us. If you're over 60, or if someone you love is, then share this story. Let it be a reminder, a wake-up call, a second chance. And if you want more powerful stories like this, stories that matter, subscribe now and join us. We don't just tell stories. We share what can save lives.